I ferment wines from kits. Each kit produces about 6 gallons of wine or 30 bottles. It's much easier than beer. And it's something to do. I have 8 kits in the basement aging right now. The instructions are very easy to follow. But if you choose to watch this video, you may learn some things in addition to what the instructions tell you, so that your first batch turns out pretty good. This is the primary fermenter. It's a 6-gallon pail. This is the secondary fermenter with an airlock at the top to keep the wine from oxidizing while it's being produced. You have to buy these things to make the wine in addition to buying the kit, but it's a one-time purchase, and then you just pay for the kits and make your wines. And with as much wine as I drink, I also save some money, so it's a benefit to me. Anyway, I use bags more than I use bottles because they're more convenient to dispense from at home, and they keep the wine from oxidizing over a longer period of time. And I reuse the bags. I got these bags that I use right now from the store. I didn't buy them off of Amazon as new bags, new empty bags. I got them from with wine in them from the store. And what I do is I pop off these tops and to open it up, then wash out the bag, fill it up, and press the dispenser back on the bag. And I'm going to show you how I pop the tops off. So I made this this little device out of a trowel, a cheap trowel. So I cut this out with a file and a hacksaw, and I use that just like this. So I twist this to make sure that it's a little bit loose, and then put the top on like this. And I'm running a wide blade screwdriver. It's the widest one that I have. Actually, this came from my dad from World War II. He made it when he was in the Navy in the Pacific. And so I get the screwdrivers pressed in there and twist. Now, sometimes these things do not pop off all that easily. Yeah, and this is one of them. Which is good, because you see sometimes how you have to be determined to do what it is that you want to do. So there's a top popped off. It just comes out like that. And then I wash the bags out. I wash these out. It's very important to keep everything clean. One of the things that you have to do if you're going to use bottles for winemaking or bags, I use bags, is clean them. So I'm going to show you what my process is for cleaning bags. And this is it right here. I've already ran the special cleaner. It's a cleaner that very quickly dissolves wine and any wine residue, and it's very good at rinsing out. It's not like a regular detergent that's hard to rinse. This stuff rinses very easily. So I ran the detergent through here, and I put my first rinse through here. So I'm going to just shake this up and drain it out. And I rinse them 3 times. It may not be necessary to do it 3 times, but I don't want to taste any soap residue. So by the second time, there's no suds left in there, and then the third time is just an assurance that there's no soap residue left. And then what I do with these guys is I'm trying to get as much water out of the inside as I possibly can. If you're doing bottles, you just turn them over and let them drip out. All right. So now I'm going to dry the outside. And then what I do with these guys is I blow them up, and if this blow up doesn't sit well with you, too bad. The reason I do that is to make sure that there's air circulation in there for the insides to dry out better. And I have no problem sharing a few microbes from my lungs in this thing because it's alcohol. It ends up getting pretty well sanitized, and we're not all that clean, folks. It's good to share germs. We've got germs all over our skin, all over everything. So as long as they're not a lot and they're not all bad, then they're probably good. If you enjoy drinking wine once in a while, making wines from kits can be something fun to do, and it makes drinking the wines a little bit less expensive. It's a lot easier to make wine than it is to make beer, in my opinion. You might spend 3 to 4 hours over a month and a half, a month to a month and a half time frame, and get 6 gallons of wine. That's about 30 bottles. I'm going to do a wine kit today. I ordered one yesterday and it came overnight. Here's what you get in the kit. That's the box it comes in. And there's a bag of concentrated grape juice from Merlot grapes. No, these are Cabernet Sauvignon grapes. The other things you get in the kit are a packet of bentonite clay, I opened that packet already. The instructions tell you to put hot water in the bottom of your primary fermenter, about 1.5 inches to 2 inches worth, and then put the bentonite in there to dissolve the bentonite. That helps in taking the lees out of the wine when you finish it and decant it into either bottles or bags. The next thing you get in the kit is oak chips or oak sawdust. What the oak does is that there's 2 bags in this kit. What the oak does is it makes the wine more drinkable sooner. And for most people, it has a pleasant, or adds a pleasant, maybe hint of vanilla to the wines. You get a package of yeast. You get a package of sulfite that you add to the wine to stop the fermentation process when all the sugar is turned into alcohol. And then these two packets are for fining the wine or precipitating the sediment to the bottom when you're ready to bag or bottle your wine. This is Kisel Sol, and this is a package of Chitosan. Plus, Wild Grapes gives you labels for the wine, and that can come in handy to mark what you did. Because for me, I let the wines mature for at least 3 months, maybe 6 months to a year before I start to drink them. The last thing that you get in the kit is the instructions. And if you follow the instructions, I've done better than 30 kits over about a 6-year time frame. I have never had a problem with a stop fermentation or anything. It's just they always come out and they're pretty good all in all. So I've started this process by putting the bentonite in there, and I'm going to continue with the next step. And the next step is putting the grape juice in the primary fermenter. So what I do with this thing is I cut the cap with a sharp knife. Be careful not to cut yourself while you're doing this. That helps get the cap off. So I'm pouring the concentrate in the water with the bentonite clay in it. Right now I'm just adding water to this bag, and I'm adding a little bit of warm water to the bag because it'll dissolve whatever wine is left in the bag and get it into the primary fermenter a little bit easier. Now the instructions say to fill up the rest of the primary fermenter. Fill it up to the 6-gallon mark, which is right here on the primary fermenter. But for me, I fill it up to 5.5 gallons, not 6 gallons. And what that does for me is it improves the body. If you make a little less wine out of the grape concentrate, it comes out a little bit more full-bodied. I had this pot of water on the stove to warm it up because the instructions tell you the temperature should be between 68 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to add the rest of the water that I've been heating up on the stove to make sure the temperature is going to come out about right. I have some water left, but I'm right at the 5.5 gallon mark, so I'm going to stop there. Before I added that water, I took a temperature on this little thermometer, and if it was significantly low, I would have heated that additional water up a little bit hotter so that I'd have a temperature range between the 66 and 77. And what I have right here is a temperature of 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is perfect for this kit. Now what I'm going to do is check the specific gravity with this hydrometer. Now, I've always used this to make sure that I've got the specific gravity right, but I've never had a specific gravity not be right from the kits. This hydrometer came to rest in the liquid right about there, which is a reading of 1.096. Now, adjusting for temperature, and there's a chart that came with the hydrometer, it's inside here. You can add 0.002. So the starting specific gravity would be 1.098 adjusted for temperature. There's a scale on here that indicates the potential alcohol content, and at that specific gravity, it should be somewhere between 12 and 13%. So here's the instruction sheet. I took the label off the top of the box. It's good in case for some strange, unanticipated reason, something goes wrong with the kit. You'll want this information to contact the supplier and try and get some kind of a remedy. So let's just check what we've done so far. Clean and sanitize equipment, we've got that. Pour 2 liters of hot water at the bottom of the primary fermenter and add the bentonite, we did that. Pour contents of the juice bag, we did that. Top the primary fermenter up to 6 gallons. We talked about that. I'm doing 5.5. We're going to add the oak chips in a minute and stir them in. Those are the oak chips. And then we'll sprinkle the dry yeast on top and then place the lid on, and it's a waiting game after that for about 2 weeks. Now, it's important to sprinkle the yeast on the top. I have a feeling that some folks stir the yeast in. It's not the right thing to do. So I sprinkled the first bag of oak sawdust in there, and it's toasted oak, or it's darker, or a different variety. And now I'm sprinkling the other bag of oak in there, and I'll stir them in a second. It takes a while to stir it in, but it's good to get it all in there so that when you put the yeast on top, it's not lying on something that's dry. It's actually in contact with stuff that's a little moist. So I finished stirring in the oak chips, and now and you can see that it's everything is kind of below the surface and a little wetted. So now I'm going to sprinkle in the dry yeast. This is the top of the primary fermenter, and I'll push that down and then relocate primary fermenter downstairs. So I have the lid on the primary fermenter, and I'm going to bring it downstairs to let it sit for about 2 weeks. That's what it says on the instructions. During that time, I may open it up 1, 2, maybe 3 times, 4 times at the most, and stir it up so that the wine gets the same treatment throughout the entire volume. Now, at 6 gallons times 8 pounds a gallon, because that's what water weighs, that's 48 pounds that I'll be moving downstairs. So you got to realize that you need enough strength to be able to manipulate 48 pounds in a pail. I have everything cleaned up, and the primary fermenter is downstairs. So let's just check the instructions. Stir well with using a hydrometer. Check the specific gravity. We talked about that. That's done. Sprinkle the yeast in is done. place a loose-fitting lid on the primary fermenter. I don't do that because I don't want anything sloshing out as I go down the stairs to the basement. But what I have here, this particular primary fermenter has a hole in it for an airlock, so there's no pressure going to be building up in there. I think that's how I've done it all along, and I anticipate continuing to do that. Now, what I do, because it's a little cool in this basement, is I put a string of incandescent holiday lights on this container on the outside with a timer that turns it on for an hour and then lets it off for maybe 4 hours, then on again, then off, so that the temperature stays around the recommended 68 to 77 degrees. And I put a blanket around it so that the heat stays where it belongs. Now we just wait for about 2 weeks. Fermentation should start, if everything is done right and your temperature is right, should start within 24 hours. It's been 48 hours and you can see the bubbles coming out of the airlock. I had a bubble about every 30 seconds yesterday at 24 hours. It's been 2 weeks and 2 days since I started fermentation, and I'm siphoning the fermented grape juice out of this container into the secondary container. When you decant the primary fermenter into the secondary fermenter, you leave all the lees, that's what they're called, all the lees behind, and that may be about, say, this much, about this much at the bottom of the container. I cleaned out the primary fermenter here after that, and now I'm going to, or I already have, I've decanted about half of the wine that was in the secondary fermenter back in here, and this is for degassing purposes. The instructions say to use a whip like this on the end of a drill, but and then whip it for 10 minutes to get the gas out. If you don't get the gas out, your wine will have a slight effervescence to it, and folks complain about it. So I'm going to show you in a minute how I degas the wine. So this is another thing that takes some strength, and that's why I only degas half of the wine in each container. Otherwise, it's just too heavy to be sloshing around. So this is it right here. And you'll hear the gas coming out. Before shaking these containers up to degas the wine, I put the potassium sorbate or potassium metabisulfite in here. What that does is it stops further fermentation. And I add a little bit more because I let my wines typically age better than 3 months, sometimes as much as a year. And if you don't add the extra sorbate, the wines could oxidize during that period of time. Anyhow, I'm going to shake this guy up and you'll hear the Now that the wine is degassed, I'm taking the wine that I degassed in the primary fermenter and putting it back in the secondary fermenter. I'll add the Kiesel's sole and stir that up with the whip and the drill. So I put the Kiesel's sole in here, and I'm going to stir it. Tomorrow, according to the instructions, I'm going to put in the chitosan, and then it'll be about 2 weeks or so before the secondary fermentation is completed. This is how you would whip the wine instead of shake it like I do. Well, it's the next day after putting the wine in the secondary fermenter. I had put in the sodium metabisulfite, and today the directions say to put in this chitosan, and I'll put that in here now, and then stir it with the whip. You notice it's not up to the neck here. And that's because I don't make the full 6 gallons, because I want a more full-bodied wine. Just to make sure that the wine doesn't oxidize while it's going through the secondary fermentation, I add a wine that I like to it that will bring it up to the top of the, or the bottom of the neck of the secondary fermenter. And now I'm going to put the airlock on and let it sit for about 2 weeks. The wine is ready to rack now. I let it go more, 4 days more than 14 days, just because I got busy on other projects, and it's not going to hurt it at all. So let's get to it. It's supposed to be kept warm, and that's what these lights are for. I tilt the carboy like this so that the sediment, it doesn't go down to the bottom here, and with it tilted, it's easier to get the last little bit of wine out of the carboy as you're siphoning it into containers. You can use bottles like this. You have to have 30 of them. For me, I like to use boxes. We're ready to start siphoning right now. I have an assistant here because I have to keep the end of the siphon away from the bottom and not stir it up. Otherwise, you get sediment in the wine. I have these needle nose vice grips to stop the flow of wine into the box. Otherwise, it just sprays all over the place. So you have to be ready to stop the flow. I tilt the box like this to make sure that the air's out of the pockets of the bag in the box, and I just keep filling it up until it won't take hardly any more. That's the first box. Here comes the second one. When the level of the wine gets down low enough that it's likely to start picking up sediment, I start to put it in individual containers, like these bottles, where I can see the level of the sediment. They'll have some sediment in them, but you can see that when you start to pour the wine out into your glass. And these things I drink first to see how it turns out, or when it would be best to start to drink the rest of it. So it's inevitable that you're going to spill something, and that's why you have some rags to wipe up the spills. It's a good thing to keep these in order so that you know which bottle is going to have the most sediment in it. So this guy here is the last one, and I label it as such. Now I'm going to put the stoppers back into the boxes. And I expel the last bit of air out of here, and that makes it so that these will not oxidize for quite an extended period of time. It was 18 days after putting the wine into secondary fermenter that I started to rack it into boxes. According to the directions, it says you can leave it to clear longer, but I've never had a complaint about wine that was cloudy. So I'm going to say that this is okay. Carefully rack the sediment into another carboy, and I don't want to do that because the wine is clear enough, and at the very end, when the siphon gets toward the very bottom, I stop siphoning it into the main containers, and I put it in other bottles that I know will contain some sediment, and then I let them sit for long enough for the sediment to settle, and I decant off the top of it to taste how well the wine is aging out. So I'm going to say I'm done with that one. We don't leave it for another 2 days. It says if you're aging for longer than 3 months, add a 1/4 teaspoon of potassium metabisulfite. I had done that in the secondary fermenter well before this to keep the wine from oxidizing. So that's done. I don't filter, that's not applicable. And I finished the siphoning. And now I'm going to label the boxes. So here's the labels. I put the date, how much the kit cost, 12% Merlot, that's what I added to top up the secondary fermenter. And then I put a number 1 for the first container, and same information, and number 2 for the second container, and so forth. If I want to take a bottle of my home fermented wines to a party, I just get an empty bottle, label it up, and come to a box of wine got in the pantry. So I fill it up. So I take this device and a cork, and it helps to lubricate the cork with a little bit of water. Put the cork in the device and run it home. Of course, you could take 2 or 3 or 4, as many as you like. I hope you got something from this video. If so, click the like button. It's important. Also, if you subscribe, you'll get notified of new videos that I post. And it doesn't cost anything. I have a lot of other videos some other videos out there. Most of them have to deal with lithium-ion battery packs. To see the other videos, just search Marty Plecki, P-L-E-C-K-I. Have a great day.